What's up, folks? Casual Dad here with another Warhammer Combat Cards Warlord guide. Tonight we're going to be covering MORVENN VAHL, the latest Supreme Commander out for Warhammer Combat Cards. One of the High Lords of Terra. I've always really liked MORVENN VAHL's character because she is one of the most powerful people in the entire 40k universe as one of the leaders of the entire Imperium politically. But she is bored with politics and maybe not bored, but like very much believes in the justness of their cause and chooses to lead from the front in her fancy bright gold walking war suit, which I just love this model when I first saw it. It's such a cool concept. Got a freaking breacher shield on with a heavy bolter in it, and it's cool. Anyway, so cool character, and I do think that the rule very much fits her like lead from the front type deal, and very much represents the Adeptus Sororitas even more than her as an individual, which is also cool because it's an entire faction identity rolled into one rule. She comes in at 84 points, which is the second cheapest of all of the Supreme Commanders, coming in just behind Shadow Sun. And just to go ahead and call it, I think that she is probably on deck for a nerf, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a bit here. But yeah, I didn't call that Belisaria's call was going to need a nerf when the Supreme Commander came out. VAHL, I think, does, because I've played a ton with her since the launch Friday when she was officially released, and I have not lost a single game, both in the competitive ladder and then also in the campaign. Now, for a max level 400 deck points campaign meant to highlight her as a character, I kind of expected that to be somewhat easier, but in the competitive ladder, going undefeated with a Supreme Commander is basically unheard of, especially at level 3-1, which all of mine are. Yeah, so she's very good. And to kind of duck into why exactly, we'll look at the top stats. So 400 hit points, decent ranged and melee stats, no psychic. But she also has fear to really up that defense, and then also has inspiring presence for the offense. So it's kind of a perfect combination of offensive, defensive stats across her stat line, just for who she is. And then also at a very affordable price point. But then her ability represents a whole new mechanic for the game, which is very cool. And then also just is really good at just supercharging whatever you put in there. So just to kind of talk about this a little bit. So anytime a card is destroyed, friendly or enemy, making her the first Servants of the Emperor card that actually benefits from destroying enemy cards, which highlights her as a character, as a very offensive character, is kind of cool. Anytime a card is destroyed, friendly or enemy, you generate one faith token. And anytime you have a faith token, there's a percent chance that a miracle will trigger anytime a friendly card makes an attack or an enemy card or a friendly card defends. And so if a miracle is triggered, if you are attacking and a miracle triggers, it will add plus 75% to the attack damage. If a miracle is triggered when you're defending, you will take 75% less damage on that attack. And all of that stacks. So fear, debuffs, taunt, all will stack with a defensive buff. And then inspiring presence, big game hunter, anti-infantry, readies, whatever things you have on there, all of those will stack with the offensive buff. So it gets completely off the charts fairly quickly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So that's how that kind of works. And the percent chance is increased for the number of faith tokens you have. So if you have one faith token, 10% chance of a miracle happening. If you have 7 faith tokens, there's a 70% chance of a miracle happening. And each time a miracle happens, it removes 1 faith token. So if you have 7, there's every chance that a miracle will happen on all 3 of your attacks across the board, which is really good. Yeah, and you do recharge them fairly quickly. Another bonus piece too is when you start the game, you start with 2, so 25 or 20% chance, and up to 2 miracles can trigger before any cards are killed. And then when VAHL herself is played, you get an additional 2. So it is random. So anytime an attack happens, whether you're on offense or defense, you can't control when a miracle is going to happen. There are 2 ways you can game that a little bit though and make it a little bit more powerful. Number 1 is maximizing your number of miracle tokens. So you could run a 5-card deck, make sure to deploy VAHL in your opening deploy, so you start the game before any attacks are made with 4 miracle tokens and a 40% chance of miracles triggering, which is decently high, especially since that's going to be some pretty heavy hitting cards, and so you end up with high odds of generating more even as you're generating those faith tokens. So there's that. The other way is to control when and how these miracle tokens or faith tokens / miracles are spent. And that is by making sure that any deck you build only uses 1 or 2 attack types and not all 3. So you always have the opportunity to ready across the board and not spend any of your built up faith tokens. Those are the two kind of key ways that you can kind of bank these and have a little bit more control over when and how they trigger. But what you're going to see in a minute when I play the games is that they are so impactful when they trigger that they're almost never wasted, and they're so easy to recharge that you find you pretty much always have some banked. So let's actually jump in the game and go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to pull up the rule to make sure I didn't miss anything. Ooh, that is a key thing. So every time a miracle triggers, it removes 1 of your faith tokens and reduces your total chance by 10%. So if you have 7 tokens, a miracle triggers, your chance to trigger a miracle goes from 70% down to 60%, and then you only have 6 more opportunities for a miracle to trigger before you run out. Let's see. Yeah, you start with it. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the decks that I've built. If you caught the announced stream, or if you want to check it out later, the link should be in the description here to the playlist, whether the actual video is up yet or not. You can kind of see some 200 deck point games that the 2 lead designers of the game play against each other. So yeah. So going off some of the stuff that I've said, you want to make sure you have 2 attack types, and I'm kind of leaning on a single attack type as dominant. So this is my melee deck. Of course, I got a 3-pointer in there just to fill it a bit and have some extra ranged. And a couple things here. So you've got the Endless on Celestine. Celestine is a phenomenal piece in MORVENN VAHL decks because you get a very powerful piece that benefits a lot from your miracles, is good at triggering your miracles because she's good at getting kills, or banking your faith tokens rather. But then also because she's endless, she gets 2 chances to generate more faith tokens for you as well. And she has Inspiring Presence, which is a really convenient way to stack with your miracles to make sure that your damage buffs are phenomenally high. Next up, you've got these 2 guys that both have Furious Charge. Now, when we talk about an attack triggering a miracle, Psionic Blast, Furious Charge, and Precision Shot and Warp Surge are all attacks. So all of those can trigger a miracle. But if they don't, Furious Charge or any of those attack on the drop abilities are really good ways to generate extra faith tokens before your turn starts. So you can use those to kind of prime your offense before you attack, a little bit like you get with Abaddon, but a little bit more random. So, and then my second deck is really ranged focused. I've got these 2 guys in here as the high value ranged attackers who benefit so much from the defensive miracles. They both generate miracles very consistently themselves because they do a ton of damage. And then usually have very strong defense because of the miracles coming in and saving them, that they are super powerful. And then these 2 add a lot of extra defense, both with the shield and then with that regen there. The combination of those 2 with those miracles is very, very strong. And then Servants and Ranged has 2 really powerful filler pieces for ranged attacks too. Got that, I believe these both have Precision Shot. No, Barrage. Excuse me, Barrage. Barrage. Got to say it right. And then Precision Shot here that does a very effective job of generating extra faith tokens or doing just additional damage on the drop. Now, deck 3, I think, is the most powerful one I've built. This is the Psychic heavy one, and this one does have a couple characters. Well, actually, does it? No, it does not. This one still does not have any ranged attacks. That's a handful. I believe she and Vahl are the only 2 cards in this deck that have ranged attacks. So this one isn't quite sticking to the rule of only 2 attack types, but it's leaning almost exclusively on Psychic. I've got a little melee, I've got 2 taunts in there, and the taunts are there to keep your other cards safe and then generate additional faith tokens. But mostly this is just a testament to how powerful Psionic Blast is, especially if you have 3 cards doing Psionic Blast, even if they're not in a Greyfax deck, where you see them most often. This deck is stupidly powerful. So we're going to go ahead and jump through here. I'm going to play a game with each so we can kind of see them in play. So you can kind of see that miracle token or faith token and miracle trigger thing happen live. Okay, against a Dark Strider, that'll be fun because Dark Strider has expendable cards and wants cards to die. So you see I start with that 20%. It's a really handy trigger to see. It doesn't show how many faith tokens you have. You have to read by the percent, but it's pretty straightforward. So for every 10% you have a faith token. So 20%, 2 faith tokens. And that's what I got just on the deploy. I fully expect a taunt card to drop next. Maybe my Furious Charges will be able to take it out before I take my turn. No, interesting. And faith. So you saw the miracle triggered right away. There is now a chance that I will actually get, there's a very strong chance that I will kill this thing on my turn, which never happens. And then now all of a sudden I got 2 miracles, and now I still have 20% miracle back, and I'm gonna generate another one with that guy over here. 30%. Oh, look, defense buff. He lived. He would not have lived in any other deck, just because that reduced the incoming damage by enough that he was able to survive. Boom, 30%. And so you see that you spend them fairly aggressively. The triggers are quite common, but then, yeah, so right there, I took 7 damage. The defensive reduction is so high, and the frequency with which miracles are triggered is so frequent that it is very, very easy to get the benefits from this ability. And I think it's a combination of how easy it is to generate these tokens and how high the percent buff is that makes this possibly a little bit overtuned. She just did almost double damage over here and could potentially kill that next turn. That defensive buff. Again, she would have died, and she did not because miracle. And because that is a crazy thing too, because she's the primary target of a barrage attack. Miracle triggered to reduce the incoming damage, which reduced the damage that the adjacent cards take as well. That's just another kind of edge case of how powerful this ability is. Miracle token, and dead. Not quite dead, okay. But then defensive buff, so instead of taking 10, I take 3. And I will say, so there are cases where the miracles can be a little bit wasted, right? Like right there, I didn't need a miracle to defend me from a 10 damage attack. That's one of the few occasions where it is straight up wasted. Most of the time it is wasted, it's because you have a card that's going to die anyway and the miracle doesn't save it, or there's a card you're going to kill anyway and the miracle just overkills it a bit more. In both of those cases, the most common cases where it's wasted, it's not necessarily wasted because you do lose the faith token and use the miracle, but then you get it immediately back because the card that dies generates that token back. So it's an expendable resource, but is so easy to refill and use that it's just impactful all game long, no matter what. That was melee. Let's try ranged. Again, I have not lost with Vahl, even playing a little bit dumb in some somewhat bad matches. In competitive ladder play, undefeated, which is unheard of for a Supreme Commander. Even with Call, there are games that I lost where I haven't lost anything with Vahl yet. Now that I've said that, I guarantee I'm going to lose a game here between these two, but we'll see. I also have fought against Skulltaker a lot. I think this is the second time this deck has been up against Skulltaker. See how this goes. And I will say, ooh, look at that. Instead of 83, I take 21. And I did mention that the defensive buff really, really helps these ranged cards survive. I think I did talk about that when I ran through the decks. Miracle! Splat. Which means that I will kill him, which means that will kill that. Without a miracle, it would have taken all 3 of my shots to kill that rightmost card. And that's a fairly minor, and then defense. I will take 10 damage instead of the like 40 that I was supposed to take. Ooh, and then it generated a token. And then, okay, that is another case where it is wasted, where a miracle was spent changing my 5 damage to 7. But it still is very rare for the miracles to like there, that's going to be lethal. That would not have been a lethal shot without a miracle. Neither would that. So you saw it trigger just a bunch of times, and that's only at a 20% chance. It's super powerful. It triggers all the time. Basically always really good when it triggers, and it's just like extremely strong, incredibly strong. Excuse me. And just like the defense was really helped out, there's a miracle right there. I was just about to talk about that. Now I feel like I'm getting trolled. Yeah, so just like I was saying, where the defensive buff really is advantageous against Barrage, the offensive buff is incredibly strong with Barrage. So you just saw me, like, if you get a buffed Barrage shot, it buffs the adjacent target damage as well. And miracle. And there, that one was wasted. But I still have 4 in the bank, and I just won. I haven't even played Vahl in these 2 games, which, if you're playing a Supreme Commander in the ladder, especially a lower level Supreme Commander, you hope you don't play them, because they're not usually powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with higher level non-Supreme Warlords, but we'll see. So that was 2. I believe I mentioned it in the beginning. Any second now. I believe I mentioned in the beginning that I personally think the Psychic version of this deck is the most powerful. That has yet to be put to the test. Because of the way that Vahl is designed, she's obviously supposed to lead the Adeptus Sororitas. You get a ton of Sisters of Battle cards that are mono attack types. dual attack types are better, but still the mono ones are pretty good. So a soup of melee and ranged with a bunch of Sisters of Battle is a very powerful way to run Vahl, and potentially is the best way to go. But I have personally found, especially in this matchup, this is a perfect example. These last two were perfect examples where my ranged deck went up against a bad match in Skulltaker, and my psychic deck is going up against a extremely good matchup in Akaran. Because if you have the Psionic Blast, it's so good at clearing out those extra lives from Akaran cards. And look at that, blip, boom. So he's dead next turn, and he would not have been dead were this not a miracle-heavy Vahl deck. Boom. So already took out an extra life, already got myself a miracle token back. Wasted, but fine. Like, it's Psionic Blast, especially Mass Psionic Blast, is extremely good against Akaran, which I appreciate. It kind of keeps Akaran down a little bit in the ladder. And look at that. That middle card absolutely should have died. And in any other matchup would have, but Vahl saved him with a chunk of hit points. So he will live an entire extra turn of meat shielding where he would have died in any other matchup. Like, again, the power of the ability when it triggers, the ease of generating additional tokens, like it's, and just watch this. I'm just going to splatter this entire field here, even without any miracle tokens. Oh, look, I generated 2. Splat. Oh, look, I generated, I cast 1. Yeah, I can't do that again. I can smoke that thing. And then we're up against Akaran himself with a board of 3 Psionic Blast Psykers. Maybe he kills one, but maybe a miracle saves me. Miracle! And I still have 20% chance. And if Vahl herself is dropped, that's an additional 2 just straight off the bat. So you have so many of these chances to trigger. Each trigger is so powerful. It's really very, very good. So again, this is my 3rd game. I've played 3 now, and I'm not even going to get to play this. I've played 3 now competitive ladder games. I've actually played a total of 7 games tonight, and I'm 7-0. I've not lost a single game, competitive ladder or campaign. Yeah, it's pretty good. Now, I was stupid here, and I finished the campaign before doing this recording, and that's my fault. But I do still have the deck that I used in it built in Apocalypse mode, and that is this. Now, obviously, I do have this guy here who's fairly rare, but if you look at this build, you could very easily spread those points among these 4, and there are so many really strong melee attackers in Servants that you can really lean on. You don't need that to really do well, although it is an exceptional piece. So we'll go ahead and play this game. I talked before about how miracles do stack with Big Game Hunter to do just bananas amounts of damage. So picture this. I drop this guy, Curtis Hicks, across from an empty lane. Parasite drops the Hierophant, the massive Biotitan with 550 HP across from him. On the Furious Charge, he gets Big Game Hunter, and then he gets a Miracle. He drops it from 550 HP to 110 in a single hit. And then on my turn, comfortably annihilates that. So I one-rounded a Hierophant with a 25-point card because of Vahl. It's very good. We'll just try this and see how this goes. I know Apocalypse mode is always a little bit of a bit more of a gamble, especially because several of the key cards I have in here are low level, where they weren't before, especially against Necrons. We'll see how this goes. Low card count, so I expect some very high cost cards in here, which also means Big Game Hunter. Go ahead and go over there in that empty lane. That's probably going to get something I should kill. Interesting. Okay. What else is in here? What is this going to be? Splat! Oh, didn't kill it. Look at that. And the reason why is this is level 3 and not the level I'm used to. Because I'm playing max level. Is this just all Medicae? What else is in there? This is not exactly the miracle. This is not exactly a great example of the game. I'm sorry I didn't save game. Why? Why is this just corpse light? Oh god, annoying. And there's no way that fills up 400 deck points. There's no way. Okay, I'm gonna do one more because this is just silly. Oh look, miracle. So just even one card that should have died not dying, or even one card not one kill that shouldn't have been a kill, one card living that should have died, like that will swing a game, and you get those all game long with every single card you have on the board with Vahl. Like Supreme Commander Vahl is extremely powerful. I feel like someone ran a 200-point deck in Apocalypse mode just for cheese. I'm going to try that again. We'll see if we get something a little bit more potent. Little developer note, it would be fun to not be placed against a deck that doesn't use anywhere near the appropriate number of deck points if you're doing Apocalypse mode. I'm actually still very excited to see what developments happen for Apocalypse mode down the road, but we'll leave that there. Okay, we got Gosar with full deck. This will be great. This will actually be hopefully very much like what we saw in the campaign, except I'm at a significant disadvantage because of card level. Excellent. Perfect. Okay, we're going to avoid that. There we go. And this is Gosar, not Parasite. The games I played against the Parasite I was very concerned about because the Parasite is really strong against this guy. This is a guy you just don't want to lose. Oh, see, look at that. Instead of taking 78, I took 20 damage, which puts this guy on the board indefinitely where he should be dead. Oh, look, I lost one. Miracles! I believe in miracles. Ooh, that's a bummer. Miracle. Nice. And there, one card living that shouldn't have lived can swing a game. And we may see that life swinging this game. We'll find out. Defense. And there again, two cards living that shouldn't have lived. He may not have died there. You can see what pops across here. Hicks is so good. So good. He's just in like crazy powerful card. Bloop. Give me some miracles. Miracle, splat. That was going to be dead anyway, but still. Give me another one. Yeah, we got another one. Pow, that may not have been dead and was now. So, yeah, and then miracle and defense too. And the poison is a really powerful thing against Vahl because it isn't affected by miracles, but she's good. She's very, very good. And defensive miracle, so she took 19 instead of the 100 she was supposed to take. She took 19 damage on that attack. Again, that stacking is phenomenal. I'm going to lose some of these guys, but should comfortably win this because Vahl is crazy. Again, a kill I shouldn't have gotten. So I'm like +4 on cards that shouldn't have died, or should have died that didn't, and then cards I shouldn't have killed that I did because of miracles triggering at appropriate times. Like it's, yeah. Let's make it a sporting chance. Bring it on. So we've got a 70% chance for miracles to trigger. It's my turn. I'm going to kill him no matter what, but we may get a miracle in every single attack. Or none, or he'll just die. Well, there we go. So there it is. That is Morvenn Vahl at 200 and 400 deck points. I think she's busted. Especially for the second cheapest Supreme Commander. The ability is so good. It is designed with randomness in mind and plays extremely consistently. So the randomness influences it being such a high percent, and then the consistency makes that percent very high. So really, really powerful Warlord. Super fun. The campaign goes through the end of the week. So I believe you should be able to play the Vahl campaign through the end of the week, and then Vahl herself is in the store. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers. Happy Father's Day for those of you who celebrate, and good luck out there.